Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Autumn Embers and welcome to me building a Victorian semi-detached terrace house. So this is part of my series of houses through the ages, and soon as I started this series from the very beginning, which was the Tudor era, I knew I wanted to go straight ahead and build two separate things from two different eras. One of them was from the 70s because oh my goldy baldy, have you seen the decoration, the interior design that the 70s went for? It was like someone just threw up and said, yeah, that's alright, I like that. And then there was the Victorian era because I love Victorian terrace houses. I live in one myself. I am surrounded by them in the area that I live in. I love to live in one myself when I'm older, if I ever get to that point in my life. But they're probably really expensive, especially the area that I'm in now is really expensive. But during these type of videos, I talk about who's been reigning through that era, what's been happening during that time. But I don't really need to spend much time on who's been reigning during this era because there's only one. And I think most of us know who it is, and that is Queen Victoria, Queen Vic, not the pub. So she reigned from 1837 to 1901, so that's 64 long years, and for quite some time she was the longest reigning queen. But hang on, Queen Elizabeth II came in and went, hey, I'm gonna take that and run with it, because she's just walked by and said, see, I take your 64 years and I'll slam down a 65 years, and she's still going. I think that was in like 2017 or something. So Queen Elizabeth is now the longest reigning queen. So she's put Queen Victoria down and said, see you later, I'm the longest reigning queen, you take that, you shove it up where the sun don't shine. And during this time, lots of houses popped up that were less grand and more accessible. That's why there's so many of them, and the reason why there's so many of them is because the Industrial Revolution played a massive part in that, because in the Industrial Revolution it caused a boom in terraced housing, including back-to-back houses. So for those of you who don't know what back-to-back houses are, basically they do what they say. So instead of having a back garden, you have another house right behind you. So you have a house to either side of you, and you also have another house right behind you. And I've only ever seen these back-to-back houses up in Leeds, and that's because my sister went to uni in Leeds. And it's funny because back in that day when they're really, really popular, because they were mainly built close to factories for the workers because they were cheap. And nowadays, well, the one I saw, it was being used for student housing, so it's kind of still like nothing's changed because it's still being used as cheap housing. So I thought that was funny. And this garden right here that you're seeing, this is based upon and inspired by the garden that I have now. So the garden that I have now is exactly the same garden that I grew up in. I still live in my family home, and I couldn't build a Victorian terraced home without having an inspiration of my very own garden. And I kept showing me mum and dad going, hey, do you know what this is? So they could, because you know you've done a good job if like other people can tell what you're doing. And they're like, oh, that kind of looks like our garden, because yeah, it is. But I get saying, but it looks much nicer in The Sims 4. I mean, it looks kind of ugly, our garden. So I did try. I mean, I did put down lots of spider webs, because even out of spider season, there's lots of cobwebs in there. I tried to put down lots of like dirt, lots of like long grass. So I did try to do that, but it's like, it looks too nice. I mean, why can't we have that garden? It looks so much nicer than our garden. And I have been working in the garden, our real life garden, with my mum, because yeah, it's a bit of a dump. It's down the back there. I couldn't include everything that we have in our back garden because there wasn't just enough space, because most Victorian terrace houses has quite a long rectangular garden, and so I couldn't really fit everything in, but I had sort of like the best bits in it. I mean, I had the garden shed. I mean, the garden shed could quite happily be your own little I'm a celebrity, get me out of here bush tucker trial. It's that bad in there. I mean, not at the moment, because mainly me mum, she's been clearing it out. Because when we first opened it in the summer, and it was like the first time in years we opened that shed, it's not the nicest. One of our neighbours was having like the tree cut down in their garden, and so the guy who's cutting it down was standing on our shed roof, and me and my mum were just standing there in the kitchen, because we can see right out into our garden from the kitchen. And we were just standing there like, oh, I wouldn't done that. I mean, I hope you ever had your tetanus shot. I mean, because you could be falling right through that ceiling. But it was alright. He didn't fall through. There is holes in our shed roof. There was big cracks in our shed roof. And when we first opened it up, there was just these white hanging spider-looking thingamajigs from the ceiling. It was sounding like a horror movie. It was like, no, if I'm not going in there, you got to pay me to go in there. But my mum grabbed a big stick, just sort of like scooped them up. It kind of looked like a candy floss stick after a while. And we took one of these spiders, fluffy white spiders, out, because we were curious, because we couldn't really see, because we didn't want to go inside, saw that. So we took it outside on a stick, and we thought it was dead. But during the time we were outside in the garden, it started to move. At first I thought it was just the wind, like, oh no, that's just the wind wiggling its dead leg. But no, it was alive. And I looked it up, because why are these spiders so white and fluffy? And why is he moving? Oh, he was dead. And I looked it up, and apparently it is sort of like a fungus that sort of eats the spiders inside out, and sort of like causes them to be like in a zombie-like state. And so basically zombies are real in spiders. So if there's someone saying zombies aren't real, well, you can tell them now, well, yeah, they are in spiders. And yeah, this little spider guy, he was still alive, but this fungus has gotten to him, because he's all fluffy and white and not the cute way. And he was basically dying, and he did, when we saved him, but we were getting caught up in what we were doing, and we accidentally squashed him. We do apologise. We were trying to save him. I mean, that's why we took him out the shed. But we also took him out the shed to sort of like look at him, like, what the heck is that? But yeah, we accidentally squashed him, and when he did sort of like get squashed, he didn't really squash in the way you would think a spider would squash, because he just sort of like disintegrated. It was just sort of like he wasn't there anymore. He had gone. The fungus diseasiness of this zombie-esque thing had just eaten him alive from the inside out. And yeah, it wasn't much left of him when he got squashed accidentally. So, but there we go. We do, whenever I see a spider, by the way, just to put it out there, I'm not a spider squasher, just to put it out there, when I see a spider, no matter how big and scary it is, because I don't really find spiders, I need to get out of this room right now. I'm quite happy just to grab a glass and put something underneath, alright? The only spiders I really don't like, they really, really freak me out, and there's a good reason for that, is because when I was sharing this version that I have now with my sister, we had bunk beds, and I was on the bottom bunk at one point, and I woke up to a black spider on my pillow just looking at me. I don't know how long that black spider was there for, but when I opened my eyes, there he was, just on my pillow, looking at me. I freaked out, as you would probably think so, and I freaked out. I flicked him off my pillow just to get it away from me, and the last time I saw him, he went underneath my bunk bed, and then a couple of days later, or the same day, or like within the same week, I can't remember the time period of this, but within that sort of like same area that happened in, I was sorting out some socks with my mum, and one of the socks had the same kind of black spider. I don't know if it was the same one or it was just like one of its mates just hanging about in a sock, but there he was, just hanging about in a sock of ours. And then again within the same time period, I then found another black spider in one of my shoes. I was like, okay, I don't like these, so I don't mind spiders. I just can't handle the black spiders, the spiders that you would probably find in your bath trying to get like a sip of water. But yeah, I can't handle black spiders. But if I do see a black spider or any other spider that's just like in my way, or like inside, for example, I will get a glass of some sort. I don't have an actual clock in my room that sits on the wall. I just have like a clock that sits on like a table and it has like a little cloche over the top of it. I use that cloche to put other spiders, slip some underneath it and chuck it out the window. I don't squash them, alright? It was just an accident that this zombie spider died. I mean, he was dying anyway. He was fluffy. We thought he was dead because he wasn't moving, and he was being eaten from the inside out. But anyways, let's talk about the Victorian era, shall we? Let's go away from slightly dead zombie spiders and the spiders in general. So let's talk about, I don't know how far I got through what I've written down here, so you might hear repeat of it. I think I talked about back-to-back houses and I saw them in Leeds, didn't I? Oh yeah, I did, didn't I? So back-to-back houses became illegal because they weren't the nicest. So they became illegal in the late 19th century, so in came the by-law terrace houses, which typically open straight out onto the street and are very simple. So you would mostly find these by-law terrace houses in the Midlands or the north of England. Due to the length of this period, the look of houses changed quite a lot. So if you live in an area like me that has a lot of Victorian terrace houses, but they all look slightly different from one another. I mean, the row of terrace houses that I live in, they're not all the same. They're all quite very different. I mean, the terrace houses at one end will look simpler, and then the terrace houses at the other end will look completely different. And it just sort of like chops and changes throughout. And you can happily see that when you're walking down the road, like, okay, these are all terrace houses, but they all look different, and there's a reason for that. So it went from quite simple, from plain brick or stucco. I put the word up so you can read it for yourself. And sash windows, which included red. Oh, hang on, I missed a bit. You know when you write it down and then you write, oh, hang on, I missed a bit. But you can't be bothered to write it out again because either your handwriting looks lovely or you just can't be bothered. That's what I've done here. So it went from quite simple to from plain brick or staccato, and sash windows, to becoming more decorative towards the end, which included red brick and terracotta with more decorative features. The external features were up to the builders as they added the flourishes depending on taste, size of houses and wealth of resident. So Basically, since I was the builder for these two semi-detached terraced Victorian houses, I got to choose what type of flourishes and detailing that went on the front of these two houses. And so what I basically did, I just basically picked out the houses that I most admire and would love to one day live in, but I don't think so. It's very expensive. But I picked out the ones that I most admire, and I just picked out the details that I most like or think I can quite happily replicate in Sims 4, and just sort of like put them on these two terrace housing. So that's how I went about that. So the arts and crafts movement inspired more ornate features. So if you want to know more about the main characteristics, what makes a Victorian home, I will tell you now. So they had coloured brickwork. The Victorian house that I live in now, I really think we shouldn't have painted our Victorian house, because we live on a very busy, with lots of cars and lorries that just thunder down it, shaking the entire house, and we have a lot of pollution on our road. And with the painted facade, it doesn't look very nice. I mean, you can quite tell when it's dirty, and it's dirty a lot of time, and you just can't keep up with the dirtiness of it. You'd be there cleaning every single day, and especially with the colour we've gone for, it doesn't really go for the dirty pollutiness. It just shows up like a sore thumb, and I don't think we should have painted ours, because if it was just left as brick, you wouldn't have noticed the dirtiness at all. You would go, it's just brick. They also have high-pitched roof, ornate gable trims. That basically means more ornate roof trim. We don't really have that in the game, so I just went for the more simpler one because that's all we have. Geometric tiled hallways. I tried to replicate that using the vampire pack ones. So I hope, because I think they're good kind of like replica, good kind of like replacement to what we see in real life, so I thought that would be alright. A brickwork porch is what I've got going. Now hallways, as you can see, a bit more brighter, a bit more lighter, you can quite clearly see. They modernised it, they completely and utterly ripped out the interior. They basically just left the Victorian shell and just redid it. They've replastered it, replumbed it probably, redid the electricity on it, redid the insulation on it. You can see that they've changed the layout a little bit, so they completely redid it. It's completely modern, and you do see that quite a lot if you are selling your home or you're just looking at nicer looking houses. You do see a lot of Victorian houses that have been completely ripped out from the inside and redone with all the mod cons and making sure it's all nice and straight. Unlike the Victorian houses, most of them have wonky walls, they have wonky thin walls, and so most Victorian houses these days you do see them being completely ripped out and just redone to all the mod cons. And so the more modern Victorian home, you can quite clearly see they have widened the hallways a little bit, unlike this hallway is a little bit on the narrow side, but that's completely to the aesthetic of the Victorian era. They're like narrow hallways. But they do like stained glass windows, bay windows, which is at the front here. Dark furniture and dark wood. So for the modern day one, I went for more of a modern aesthetic, since I'm at the moment doing it's more sympathetic to the Victorian era. I mean, clearly they've knocked right through, which is not quite sympathetic to the Victorian era, but for this one I did decide to be a bit more sympathetic and go for more traditional colours that you would probably more likely to see in the Victorian era, and I've also gone for darker woods because that's another thing that you would see. You wouldn't really see parquet flooring, which is what I've used in this home. The reason why I went for parquet flooring is because when you normally see a Victorian terrace home that's trying to be more sympathetic to the Victorian style but still to be more up to date, you do see more of a parquet floor being used. I know parquet flooring is more of an Edwardian thing, but like I said, you normally see it being used for a more up to date but more sympathised Victorian interior. You also see like darker flooring. I thought the parquet flooring would just be like a nice compromise, because with this being a terrace home, you only have windows at the back and the front of the house. So with the darker colours on the walls and the lack of light that we get from the windows, I thought a parquet flooring would be better because the darkness of the dark flooring would just be too much. It'd be like, oh, okay, that's a bit dark, isn't it? So that's why I didn't go for the dark flooring, but changed it up with the dark wood, which is still a part of it. Fireplaces in every room because that's how they kept themselves warm. Some fireplaces in these terrace houses that you see in real life, I've got one in my bedroom, but you can't see it because it is boarded up. It's all, you can't see it. My bed's actually right against it. So some of these Victorian places that have even been ripped out of the fireplace, which is very expensive, or they've just boarded it up like I have. Although, because my bedroom is right above my living room, if we're having a if we're having a fire downstairs in the fireplace, if we're having a fire in the fireplace downstairs in the living room, and if I come upstairs to my bedroom, I can put my hand on the wall where the chimney breast is because it's showing the same kind of flute thingamajig. But if I put my hand against it, I can feel the warmth of it. It's just so strange. It completely freaked me out first. I was like, why is this warm? Why is this wall so warm? What the hell's going on there? Oh, hang on. There's a fire going downstairs. Oh, it's just that. What am I doing? It's just that. It's the same one. It's the same chimney breast. Oh, what am I doing? Patterned wallpaper. They typically went for heavy floral designs. We don't really have that in the game, so I don't really go for it. Elaborate design details reflecting wealth of the owners. High ceilings, so if you have like a mini giant when she's about 6'8", they would quite happily stand upright in these houses. Large windows, now hallways leading into different rooms. As you can see, with the more sympathetic Victorian house, which is the one I'm still working on, I've kind of not done that because the Victorian house that I live in, because of who lived in this house before us, they kind of just knocked all the walls out. They kind of made it more open plan, and that's what I'm used to. So that's why it doesn't really have more design designated rooms. That's why there isn't like, this is the room for the kitchen, this is what the room for the living room, this is the room for the dining room, this is the room for the study. That's why there's only sort of like 2 rooms. It could be a 2 up, 2 down if it wasn't for the laundry room. It'll be alright. Because 2 up, 2 downs were also quite common in the Victorian area. Basically, you have 2 rooms upstairs, 2 rooms downstairs. Bathroom, it was a luxury to have a bathroom, especially indoors. The shower downstairs there, I do get rid of it because I was like, oh yeah, I have a washing line outside. That kind of tells me laundry is sort of like involved in this more sympathetic Victorian style house, unlike the other one next door. So let's get rid of that shower, and I've just put in some washing machine and I put in a tumble dryer. So for those days when it's wet outside, you just gotta take the tumble dryer smell and just take it, because it's either that or you go and hang up your clothes all over the house and just hopefully let the fireplace and the warm air dry them out. Because my mum doesn't like the tumble dryer smell. I really don't mind it, but my mum hates it. So she would rather have the clothes just sort of like spread all around the bottom area of the downstairs, all over the place, sort of all over the artwork downstairs, all over the door frames. And it's kind of a pain where you're just sort of like going in and out of a room because you kind of have to keep ducking to go away from like your dad's Hawaiian t-shirts that he wears all year round, including his shorts. He does not believe in long trousers, and even when it's snowing, my dad will wear Hawaiian shirts and shorts. I mean, we've once before gone to a party shop and bought a Hawaiian shirt because there was a time where you cannot find a Hawaiian shirt for anything, so we had to go to a party shop and buy one. So yeah, so my mum does not like the tumble dryer smell. I don't mind it. I think it's all right. But yeah, my mum was always like, oh, it's windy out. Oh, it's a great drying day. It's like, okay. And she gets very excited. I'm like, okay. All right then. I mean, I'd rather just stick it to tumble dry. Although, with tumble dries, you got to be careful. Because that's when you can shrink your items. Or, the top I'm wearing at the moment, it is a very thin navy blue jumper. It has a lovely owl on it. And it is a size 6 from Next. But yeah, Next size is just full smaller than every other shop. So it was perhaps maybe one day a size 6. But I've ever known it to be large because it's quite big. I don't think it's meant to be an oversized jumper at all. So it's quite big, quite baggy. It's not a size 6 jumper anymore. It's ballooned basically in the wash. So that's one other thing you could do in your wash things. But normally tumble dryers tend to shrink your clothing. Speaking of like stinky like smells, we have a family of foxes living just like over somewhere behind a house, behind a fence, behind the back garden, and you may be thinking, oh, that must be so cute and adorable. Foxes are so cute, they're very intelligent. No, not really. No, because I once woke up one morning and our stairs is right at the front of a house. I mean, you open up the door and here are your stairs, and with the back door is at the back of the house. And I came down to the front, and I came down the stairs, and halfway down the stairs, I could smell, because the back doors were open, I could smell the fox's pee. And it's not nice. It is disgusting. It pongs. It just gets everywhere. The smell just doesn't leave you. And it's not just the pee that smells. They like to unearth like weird things. At one point, my mum saw one of the younger foxes because it is a young family. I think the young cubs have now turned into teenagers, or what we think as teenagers. And my mum just saw one of them playing with something. My mum went out there after the foxes had left, and it turned out to be, sorry if you're squeamish, but it turned out to be a magpie skull, a dead bird skull, and it wasn't fully like decomposed because at this point when my mum saw it, because I did see it, but at this point when my mum saw it, maggots around it, all over this dead magpie's head, and I'm like, ew, that fox was playing with it, ew. And my dad buried it, but also not deep enough because I went out the garden and I was like, ooh, what the heck is that? I was like, and I showed my mum, I was like, what is that? And I came closer to it, and guess what? It was the same dead bird skull. By the way, the skull was just separate. There was no body, it was just the skull. But this time around, the skull had no maggots around it. It was just sort of like a dry bone skull. And I found it kind of fascinating because I don't get weirded out by like skulls and stuff like that and bones. So, and I'm also kind of surprised by the fact that this magpie, they have really tiny eye sockets. Man, I know their eyes are tiny anyway, but they're really tiny eye sockets. They also have like a comb-esque jawline, like the type of comb you brush out your hair with. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought they would have that. Be honest with you, I don't really think about like magpie skulls anyways. But they also make really, really weird noises during the night. They also just rip open your bins and just spread all your rubbish out onto your garden. It's even worse when they rip up your bins and they spread all your rubbish all over the public pavement that people have to walk on up and down to get to work to or get where they need to go to, and it's just our rubbish all over the place. And then your neighbours get really angry with you. It's like, hey, your rubbish is all over the pavement. It's like, hey, that's not my fault. I didn't ask the foxes to tear up my bins and just spread all over the place. If anything, it is embarrassing because you've got to do the walk of shame, the walk of clearing up all your crap. We got to the point where we are washing our containers that contain meat or have any contact with meat. We are even using bleach these days just to eradicate the smell of meat, so that doesn't happen. They also like poop all over the place and you just want to enjoy a garden despite it look like a right old mess. You want to make it look nicer, but how can you when you got squirrels all over the place? They're also a right pain, they are. You got squirrels all over the place, you got foxes all over the place of just pooing everywhere, and squirrels are pain in the arse because they just scratch at anything. They will gnaw through your bins, even like the solid bins like made of thick plastic. They'll gnaw through them. They will gnaw through electrical lighting outside. You think they'll probably kill them off? No, they're indestructible. These stupid bloody squirrels. They also dig up any plants that you try to plant down. They try to eat them if they're not trying to dig them up. And it's like, why? I'm trying to make my garden a nice looking place. I know it's difficult with the very high trees and it's very shady in here. But could you please stop trying to ruin my garden? I'm trying to make it look pretty. And it's just impossible with like foxes and squirrels around. It's just like, why am I trying? And snails! Oh my god, snails! Oh, they just eat and eat and eat. Like, how can you not? And they're so intelligent as well. And why? Because even if you're like one of these people who throw them over your fence, they got such a brain that they know where they are and they just trap themselves back. And it's like, oh, for God's sake, why? Why can I have your knowledge and you have my knowledge and then you can be lost? But anyways, I'm going to leave this part here. I'm going to leave this video here. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you have enjoyed watching. And hopefully I will see you again soon on the next one. So thank you. Goodbye.